spot. You've got my makeshift studio behind me, and it's actually a sunny day today. So it's been beautiful and sunny the last couple of days. So loving that. It was a little wet, just checking we're all happening here. Yes, we look good on there. So it means that actually what the tricky piece about it is that it means that my camera's over here, my computer's down here, and I like looking at you. So I'm looking a lot at not the camera. So,
that's okay.
All right. We have to just go with the flow. But you know what's exciting? What's exciting is that you're on the decision table today. I am excited about that because I've had a lot of people who I have never met before on the decision table. And so it's really going to be fun having a conversation with someone who I know very well and love being a part of your world and you in my world. And it, one of the things that I'm always impressed about.
I want to be me. Anyway.
That's all I expect from you, Jill, is you being you. What I love about you, Jill, is that you are you and you're willing to keep evolving no matter what. And, I've had many guests on this table, and one of the conversations that's come up is about ageism. And, and I know, and generational sort of gaps and things like that. What I love about you is you don't let your age stop you from evolving. Tell me, where does this come from? Why do you not let it stop you? Why do you not say, hey, I've done it. I can put my feet up and just, live the rest of my days sipping a pina colada or something.
Oh, I actually love them.
I know, me too. We've got to have one when we're back together again.
I get drunk on them when I sailed the Caribbean for a long time ago. You know what? It's funny. It's not from my parents, I have to tell you. But maybe it was despite my parents, because my parents were old when I was born, I swear to God, and they were old all the time growing up. I just really
old, conservative, old. What
conservative?
Tell us what old
very
means.
Jewish, although we were never religious. Very into that milieu of that, and very into family. The cool thing about growing up in a Jewish household is that it's very family oriented. It's very, very family oriented. And that is a cool thing. And, it could be partially from my aunt, who was quite a trailblazer in her day. She was, like one of the top salespeople for a huge knitwear company in New York, and just independent. And she was the one who took me to, super restaurants and, and theater and all of that stuff. And I don't know.
So began that love for your dramatic side of you.
I know. I did that. Maybe it was about being a 60s kid though, too, because I came of age in the 60s. Because yes, I am 75 and I was born in 45. And I just really, that whole revolution that was taking place, even though parts of it were really heartbreaking, when friends came home in body bags and, friends went to Vietnam to be always, forever scarred by it. But still, it was such a dynamic time. And I was in a dynamic place because I left.
But wait on. You can't just skim over that. Like, I was not born in the 60s. And so I have no idea what that really truly means. Like, to have friends come home in body bags, like, how did that impact you going forward? What did you learn from that? What did you take from that? Like, how did that help form some of your thinking maybe? And then you say it was also dynamic. What do you mean by that? Like, how did that help?
Very interesting.
Create who you are. Yeah.
Well, I mean, here in this country, we had a huge insurrection against the Vietnam War because people, A, were coming home in body bags, and B, there was no reason to have this war, period. And it was felt in the beginning by the young people. And then, of course, the rest of it is history, because all of the stuff with the Pentagon Papers and all of that stuff bore it out that it was just the stupidest war in the world, and they were sending people over to die. And of course, that was my generation.
Wow.
But on the other hand, women were burning their bras and being feminists and being independent. And, I was 3,000 miles away from home, thank God. And into
you think the parents might have had a few things to say watching you do things like that?
Oh my God. My favorite thing with my parents, first of all, people would ask me what I was majoring in, and I would always say theater, and they would cringe. And the other piece about my parents were, my mom said, "This is my daughter who went to California and never came home."
Wow.
Yeah. So I think living in California definitely had something to do with it, but going through the turbulent 60s, being feminist and going to UCLA. I mean, Berkeley was the big school for all of the free speech movement, but UCLA was too. And we basically had, and also the whole sexual revolution and the drug culture that arose from all of that.
So just think about the 60s versus where we are now. Huge gap, right? Or in some ways, are we just rehashing the old ways, or have we got more voice at the table, or have we got more freedom, or is it being taken away? What's your thinking?
Are you talking about women, or are you talking about?
I don't know. I'm talking about whatever you think from that question.
Well, I know here in the United States, they're trying to take our reproductive health away again. Wow. And I basically, because I had an illegal abortion at 19, I basically went to work for a clinic that was doing menstrual extraction, which is now a common way of doing abortion, and marched and became in the Women's Health Coalition. I still have a T-shirt. I it's like a size 6. I can't throw it out. It says "My body belongs to me, but I share." But it's like this big. It's the bottom of my drawer. But I just really felt, and it's a feeling, Kira Marie. It's a feeling. It's like I just didn't want to do what Mom did. And I was always told that I should be a teacher or a secretary. And I was a teacher for 20 years, but I just didn't want to do that. I mean, it's just basically didn't want to do it. And that's where I was at, and still has carried on, because you look at it and you go, well, that ain't it. That's basically always been kind of like my beacon.
And is that how you feel with where the generation is now? I don't want to be a part of that. Or are you, what are you thinking? Are you feeling like you have the freedom to have the freedom that you longed at that time and moved on from your parents' generation kind of thinking?
Well, we have more freedom. We still don't have the Equal Rights Amendment passed in this country.
Yeah.
We do have, and we have a brand new woman vice president. We had to have, and she's Black and Asian. Horrors in a country. Yeah. What's really going on in my country? I really do believe that it's the white men who want to have all of the an alarm just went off outside my window.
It's probably because you said white men, like the world does not like it when we say things like that right now. But I think this is a conversation that's got to be had, like whether we agree with it or not. Like, I think we need to have a conversation around this.
I agree.
Yeah.
because they feel they want that, and they're trying to get the power back, because I think slowly it's, eroding, number one. And number two, they're terrified.
So you're saying that you feel that they feel that it's eroding and they are losing control, so they're wanting to get it back?
Yeah. Oh my God.
Wow. Interesting.
What a picture of this. When they signed into law that crazy, and I'm sorry, I'm not terribly political, but I have been the past couple of years because of what's going on in my country. When they signed into
here's
law,
the thing, Jill, on the decision table, there is no right or wrong. And this is merely a conversation that I think all of us need to have, whether we're political or not political. It's what are you seeing, and how is this, creating what you're thinking going forward or not? Or what are you taking? What are you leaving? How are we adding value to humanity going forward? And I think that although, I never had an interest in the political space, I can tell you, I listen, I learn, and I'm definitely interested in it, because I know that decisions are being made at that level, and those decisions are affecting every single one of us every day.
Yes. I really do believe that really the best example I can think of what's going on in this country is when they signed that Georgia crazy voting thing where you can't even give people water in line, and there are 7 white men signing it, and then they hauled away and jailed that Black woman who just wanted to know what was going on.
Yeah.
Yes. But things are.
And unfortunately, what about scenarios like you speak of there? That's not a once-off either. And that's the issue. And I'd say the same with a lot of it. Look, I think, and this is one of the reasons I'm using the lens at this moment on the decision table and really deep diving into it, because I think there's so much conversation around this that we need to have. And that is, if we go back to less about gender, less about race, less about, inequality of individuals or minorities, and go, well, if we come back to number one being humans at the table, and we're talking about decisions that are going to affect the human race first, then these things shouldn't be happening whether you're white, black, purple, green, whatever it is, right? It really shouldn't be happening, because it's not beneficial to the human race. And I think that, the problem is that we are trying to have conversations that is segregating the world and dividing the world way more than bringing it together as a collaborative and collective across the globe.
No, I agree. And I guess the microcosm of it is, in my country, which has been kind of a mess for a while. And I'm hoping that things get better. And going back to the 60s.
And by the way, can I just say on that one, sorry, and don't forget what you're about to say, but I just want to push in on that. I don't think it's isolated to your country. Okay. I was speaking here in Australia, and I purely asked, and it was with, we're spending time with my, I don't even know how you say it. It's like my stepmother-in-law. I guess that's how you say it. And, I was asking her how she feels about where our Australian government is going, because I'm really interested, knowing that she's, been here a little bit longer than I have and has seen it in a longer space, and then, watched it, how it has created results here in Australia as well. And I said, my biggest concern is that, as we go forward, are we helping to develop? I'm just going to make sure, by the way, because if you're coming in and out, it's probably because of my internet and it swaps over. So I think you're back again now. But what I was saying was, are we actually creating the next generation of healthy thinking and bringing more people in at the table that maybe will have these conversations and maybe will change the direction of where it's going. And I think that's the bigger question is, we don't we don't like hearing these stories. We don't like seeing these things where there is not the freedom of maybe the right people being at the table. And how do we change that? And I think that's bigger conversation of what we're saying here, whether it's white, black, like I said, purple, green. So I just wanted to push in on that because we see that here in Australia. For some reason, this keeps, and I'm so sorry for people who are watching, but the internet here keeps on swapping over onto a different.
Yeah, and I'm wired in, so I don't think
I was
hotspotting.
I don't know. Let's just make sure. I just don't want to miss this conversation. Sorry, Jill. I'm just making sure that it's on this end. For some reason, it keeps swapping out of our internet right now. And I don't want to miss what you've got to say. Oh, it's taking a long time. You talk because maybe others can hear you. I just can't hear you right now. Well, actually, now I can.
I don't know, and I don't see it blipping.
But my internet's going round and round, which is not a good thing right now.
No, I really, to answer your question about you think that this is different or the same as the 60s, I do believe that, discontent and ferment lead to revolution or insurrection, not the kind we had on January 6th. No, but I mean, that's what ended up happening in the 60s. In the 60s, I mean, because of the scientific developments, birth control, the Vietnam War, in my country, unpopular things that were going on. And that really led to a lot of people going, no, this ain't it. And I think basically that's probably going to happen at some point here because basically we're having the same issues. We're having the same kind of issues. We're so polarized and we're so angry at each other and we're so fractionated that we do need to come together. Oh, I lost you. I lost her. I'm still on. Okay.
I think our conversation's so hot, my internet didn't like it here and it cut me out, but we are back on.
Yeah, it's okay. That's okay. I know. Gotta love technology, right?
And especially when you're hotspotting off a phone, and I think others are swapping in and out of it as well. So there you go. Yes, you were saying, because you were going to go back to the 60s.
About the fact that, you asked about the 60s and change. And I do believe that we're getting to a point where I keep saying to people, I'll march, I'll burn my purple bra. I still can march, thank goodness. So if Jane Fonda's doing it in her 80s, I can do it in my 70s. So, I mean, I do believe that we have to really stand up for what we feel is correct. Yeah. And this ain't it, not in my country.
Yeah.
This ain't it. I'm really, and I did to bring us all together. Yes.
I know, right? It's a bit like that. So how do you see what you're doing now and moving into your next? How's this doing what you're standing for, being who you are, all that sort of side of it?
Well, I mean, I'd love to talk about, my whole, what I stand for, what I'm passionate about, which is health. And I am, I'm kind of a beacon for that at 75 in a world where people do believe that, you might as well pack it in and put your feet up. I don't go there. I don't like that. People say, when are you going to retire? I say, no, never. They're going to have to carry me out because basically I do believe that what ends up happening is that people stop and then it becomes a downwardly spiraling thing. for them and everyone else. And I don't believe that you have to stop. And if you're healthy, if you can maintain your health, that's really what the key is. I mean, I if you can maintain your health, that's what the key is. And that's my passion and what I stand for. I mean, and I'm all for gut awareness, because I do believe that, as Hippocrates said 2,000 years ago, I don't know, he was this Greek father of medicine. He said, all disease begins in the gut. I mean, even then he knew, without lasers,
amazing, isn't it?
X-rays, or they knew, people knew. And we're not doing that now. We're really trashing ourselves and trashing our health and doing.
How are you seeing people trashing their health? What is it that you're seeing mainly?
I laugh because I always bring this up to people. The line at my In-N-Out is a burger.
Yeah, I know what it is.
Yeah. Oh, because you travel. Yeah. Well, one day coming home from the hospital, because I work in a psychiatric hospital, and that's another thing. Mental health has never been worse right now in these times. The line was literally 10 blocks long. I was counting.
Wow.
And I went, okay. And it's interesting because people think A, it's better, and B, it's healthier, and it might be healthier, but
it's because you can do those lettuce wraps at In-N-Out as well.
Who? I'm sorry.
You can do like lettuce wrap things in In-N-Out.
Lettuce wrap, yeah.
So it's healthy, right? When you do lettuce around it.
Yeah, but who does that? I love that they offer it, but who doesn't? I mean,
I have to say it's been a long time since I've had one of them. But I think, is this because we've got lazy and we're busy, and a lot of us are too tired to be doing cooking? I feel it.
I believe that cooking is really a primal thing. I believe that cooking and fermenting and all of those things are primal things. I think, and I'm not saying women, I'm not sexist that way, but I think we all really need to get back to putting our hands on food, and preparing food is part of a primal thing. It's what
tell us why it's so primal and why that's an important thing. Haven't we moved on in life? That's what we've talked about, right? Freedom of moving on and into new things. Like how is it beneficial going back into time and being primal now?
Well, because we end up what was this statistic? I'm thinking about it. Basically what's happened is we've totally screwed up our food supply with, genetically modified food, with pollution, the water table in California, which is one of our big farming areas in the United States, is totally polluted.
Yeah.
And then we do GMOs, and then we, and it was interesting
because supply, we are putting demand on it. And so the quicker that it comes out and a bigger supply, so we're changing formations of things, which can only be not a good thing for our bodies.
No, it's not. And
it makes me laugh that anyone can think that that's a good thing.
No, well, okay. You got to understand too. I mean, here's my phone right here.
Yeah.
We're dealing with 5G and we're dealing with, electromagnetic frequencies. They're not good for our bodies. There are many reasons. I did in my Good Gut show last week what the dangers of electromagnetic frequencies are. Yeah, it's great to have a phone that kind of whizzes through, but it's also, we need to look at stuff. And I look at it as the bucket overflowing syndrome. That's what I call it.
Okay. Tell us about that.
You put in the bucket, you put in the toxins of everyday life, and we have more toxins in our environment than ever before.
Yeah, it's in our environment, it's in our food, it's in our thinking too. It's everywhere. Right.
And you add to that lousy food, food that does not really suit your body, which is all the processed food, and we cook in oils that are really not good for us, and we do we have fake food.
Again, we're changing, when we're cooking with oils, we're changing the chemical formation of it.
Right. And then, you're adding to that 5G, you're adding to that
more chemical changes.
More. So then the bucket starts to overflow, and people wonder why all of a sudden they get diabetes. They didn't all of a sudden get diabetes. The bucket has been filling.
No, it just happened overnight, Jill. It did. No, I'm just kidding. I'm staring. It's so true. Like, yeah, it just happened overnight. I got diabetes, no, it never happens overnight.
No, and they say that all the time.
Yeah.
They say that all the time. They go, oh my God, all of a sudden, I just got an email the other day. Oh, my antibody test, that's an antibody test for diabetes, is abnormal. I need to see you now. And I always say to people, why didn't you see me 5 years ago when you knew that this was a problem, and the doctor is saying, gee, you could get diabetes if you didn't take care of yourself.
Yeah.
No, it's not right now. It's cumulative.
But, you think of it as a human race. It's quite common for humans to think, well, if it's not a problem now, I'm not going to face it. Or, if I just do this, it's never going to happen to me. These are common traits and human characteristics, right?
It's true. It's true.
Yeah. And I love prevention, but that's not the way we were necessarily taught to do life. And I've got to tell you a story. Like the other day, I have to say I was less than a friendly mom. And the reason being was that my daughter was complaining, and then she complained to friends of ours. Oh my goodness, my mom always says we have to do organic. And I said, I do not ever want to hear you complaining about that. Ever. I said, we have the privilege of being able to buy organic food and use as much as possible organic food where possible. And I said, yes, you are right. I do have a thing about it. Why? Because of what we're talking about right now. Yeah. That as much as possible, I don't want to we already have chemical imbalances. We've got autism in our house. We've got things that maybe, conditions in our bodies that have created different chemical makeups. And so why would I be adding extra chemicals, things that, this to me is a preventative, so that I don't spend all my life in hospital. My children don't, and my children are able to be and do what they're meant to do in life. And it's funny because over Easter, even though we did like the gluten-free, dairy-free, and by the way, they tasted disgusting, Easter egg for the kids and everything like that.
Love that.
Watching when sugar goes into my children, and they had like these lollipop things that were made out of fruit juices and stuff like that. But because we don't do sugar in our house, on purpose, by the way, because I don't like all the chemical changes that I see within my children and myself when we eat and do all that. And it's not that we don't do it ever. I just don't have it in my house, and I don't do it as a normal. But it was interesting going, hey, kids, you just go for it over this weekend, for sure. And oh my goodness, did I have a few little arguments with my children in the latter part of the weekend. Why? Because they had filled up with all the sugar, and the changes just even in their attitude, in they were dragging themselves around. It was really different. And I found that quite fascinating.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. Sugar can cause leaky gut. Antibiotics cause leaky gut. GMOs cause leaky gut. Toxicity cause leaky gut. I mean, you can turn around and cause leaky gut. And, leaky gut, the statistic is like 80% of us have one. And one out of, for every one person who has digestive issues, there are 8 more that don't, but still have leaky gut. So, I mean, this is you talk about an epidemic. This is an epidemic.
But has this increased over the years? And so why is it increasing? because of all these things in our diet?
Because of the toxins in our environment, as well as our bad food, as well as our lousy lifestyles, as well as your kids saying, "Gee, you buy our, organic. You want to go to In-N-Out, whatever."
I just go, well, if that's your biggest problem in life, whew, girl, you got some things to learn.
I work in a psychiatric hospital, and I'm surrounded by styrofoam. Another thing, styrofoam is bisphenol A and really bad stuff. And then people put it in the microwave and then they eat off of it. I mean, it's just everywhere. I don't even want to get started.
By the way, why would anyone even think of doing that? That is just crazy.
Yeah, but they do every day. I see it.
Wow, really?
Yeah. These are
I just haven't lived. Whew, I didn't even know you could put them in there. I would have thought they would.
They do
disintegrate or something.
Put them in there anyway.
Wow. Okay, so here's the crazy thing, right? We know that these things, and then I don't think that we're talking about something that is really that new. Like most of us know things like this create issues, but that doesn't stop us from doing it. A lot of people that are probably listening and going to listen to this probably will continue to do it. Why, as a human race, do we continue to do things that we know is not beneficial? And I don't even mean this just in the health. If we go back to some of our conversations that we were having before, right? Why are we putting, having all of these kind of people at the table and going that this is the right thing rather than having different people at the table? Like, why are we continuing to do it all the same, knowing that the results are not beneficial to us as a human race? Okay.
You want to know my theories on this?
Of course. That's why I asked the question.
Well, number one, I hate to say it, but it's the medical model. And backtracking around your stuff around people are lazy. They are. Okay. Yeah. They are. They don't want to work at it. I mean, and life is hard enough. I agree, but
and we're often all tired, right?
You have to work. At
the end of the day, we often get to that tired stage because we're so busy. Yeah. Maybe we're just too busy.
Yeah, but it's so weird that I work 70, 80 hours a week, and I'm just gearing up to do this promotional thing, which I'll talk about a little later. And I worked. Last night I went to the hospital, did some work. I came home. I worked till 11 o'clock. Yeah. I got stuff out. I worked this morning. I got more stuff out. And I even did a segment on my Good Gut show last week about doing a salad in 5 minutes, and I timed it. And I did it and put it in the bag in 4 minutes and 30 seconds. Whew, come on. There is no excuse for people not doing it. I'm 70.
Maybe it's because we're willing to live with excuses, right?
I think so. I think we're lazy, number one. And number two, I hate to say it, but it's the medical model. It's the medical model. And it's the belief system that if I don't feel well, I'll just go to the doctor. He'll give me a pill and I'll be fine.
Yeah.
So it's the have a symptom, take a pill scenario.
Yes.
Because the other stuff is about really working on your life, which is not attractive to a lot of people. But it's not that hard. I mean, I do it all every day. And yes, I'm the expert, but still, it's not that hard. And that's what the message I guess I need to get out to people is that it's really not hard to do some little changes so that your life can be healthier.
Yeah. Yet it is hard because everyone keeps saying it. I think that it actually comes down to this. I think you're so right about that pill. And I think that we are in such, I used to call it the microwave age, right? Where you want it so fast, you want the express version. I hear it all the time, especially in the business world, of how do we hack our brains so that we can think better and do better. And you know what is so it's a frustration on my side of it is this. where do we take ownership of it? Where is us going, hey, guess what? Like, we all have 24 hours in our day. How are we using that? What do we look like? Like, what are we prioritizing and saying, this is going to be part of the priority. This is what we're going to do. And this is how we're going to do it. And own that. And that might be that, and I think of this as us as humans at the table, that we think about us physically. What time or how much time are you going to prioritize to getting in shape, being in shape, taking a walk, doing whatever it takes on a daily to get movement happening? Okay, so if brain power, intelligence is really important, then what are you filling your brain up with? Who are you spending time with to make sure that you're learning better things, engaging in really healthy conversations? And, if feeling and happiness and joy and all those things are really important, then what are you doing in life that is creating moments where you're having fun? You're taking time out with family, friends, whatever it is that fills you with love, joy, peace, happiness, all those important things. And it's interesting because you even said it before, like, and I can't remember how it came up in my brain, but it was like, I thought the other side of it was that, I know that you go, I'm not going to retire and I'm going to keep going, because a lot of people that stop, then there's sort of that downward spiral. And I just have to think that maybe it's because there's no vision, there's no purpose. And I often think that us as humans, when we have a vision, where we have a purpose beyond ourselves or beyond just living for ourselves, we change what those priorities are, what those non-negotiables become in our life. And health is one of those things that, yeah, you're right. We could just go and be an unhealthy person, keep putting chemicals in, keep doing things the way we want to. But really, are we going to live the most effective we can? Are we going to be the best partner in life to whoever that may be? Are we the best, parent because we don't have the energy, we don't have the, whatever it is. Like, I just think that there's a lot of selfishness from living in excuses, and a lot of selfishness of, putting demands on things where we don't even need that demand. We could put the money that we put in the medical into prevention stuff, into, things that maybe would help us as humans to be healthier people.
I'm laughing because, every time we have an initiative here, like I remember the one that Obama did, and I read the whole thing actually, and it was prevention. But I never saw prevention, although there are many studies that show that prevention is cost effective and works, right? But you realize too that one of the things that our whole culture runs on is big pharma, and basically they don't really want us to be well. They want us to be sick, and I'm sorry, but it's the reality of it. So it becomes the consciousness of the people in power, which are the medical doctors. And Thomas Sass, who is a wonderful psychologist, once said that in the absence of religion, doctors have become our new priests. And basically, the doctor, I know, because I've worked in clinics. The doctors are visited daily by drug companies who cater to them and say, don't you want to give my drug to your people? And it just perpetuates the whole thing. And we don't have, I worked in a cancer clinic that was started by an MD who had cancer. He basically succumbed, unfortunately, to the cancer, but it was years later, fortunately, because he went on this whole preventive, natural regime. And then he hired people like me who could do that. You know, we had people who work for Deepak Chopra. We had me. We had a naturopath. We had people who had found, you know, developed biofeedback. It was an amazing crew. They even did a Discovery Health program on us. And it was amazing what we could do with people with that multidimensional approach to care. And that's not done anywhere. You know, we're so disjointed about all of that. Somebody at Harvard years ago said that we really need in healthcare focus factories, which is that same approach, but we don't have it. You know, we had
and for us to have that though, wouldn't we have to come to the table and maybe have different voices at the table and have a different conversation at the table?
Would be nice, wouldn't it?
Wouldn't it? Yeah. And it sounds so good in theory. How do we actually put that in play?
I think it's growing. I think one of the things that has happened with us is, and that's an interesting thing, you know, and I'm putting a little plug in right now, but I just so overjoyed. I was asked to do something called an info stack. I had never heard of it, but it's a bunch of people who are very passionate about gut health. And we're giving you a lot of information, e-courses, e-books. Yeah. I'm offering 20% off on my Heal Your Gut supplement package. We're doing that, and they're giving that for $49. I mean, that's just amazing to me. And I think the reason they started this was that people are interested. They wouldn't do it. They're making money. They want to make money. They wouldn't do it if people out there weren't interested. I find that a lot more people are interested now. People join my Good Gut group on Facebook daily now. It's just blowing me away because it's like I got somebody from Afghanistan today. You know, people are interested. There's a growing,
because we want to see change. We want to see things differently. I don't know about, you know, I can only speak from myself, but I know that I want to leave not just for me, but for the generations to come, like a springboard that they can springboard off to do what they're meant to, and hopefully learn from the things that we've made mistakes on, but also learn from. And I just keep going, but how do we do that if we continue the same way we are doing right now? And even though, see, I love hearing that, and I go, and how else can we keep moving it so that we know we're heading in the right direction? Because some of these, you know, players, and this is one of the biggest concerns, I'm seeing a lot of, and we have to be so careful because there's so much information that is directed at us that maybe puts biases within us as well. But we have to be careful of who's buying up everything as well, like, and what they're wanting to spend that on and do with it once they've got control of it. And I just go, this can sound really almost too big, and why not just go down the road and eat that burger? Because why would we want to fight this and shift it and move towards the right direction? Because it seems so big. And I do have those conversations a lot with leaders across the globe because, you know, and one of my things is that reality is nothing changes across the globe with the global solutions. It will only widen the gap and create bigger global issues if we're not willing to do things ourselves, because we are the global space, like you, me, anyone else that I have conversations with on the table. Like, we are that global space. We are the ones that will shift it. And I just keep going, how can we, knowing what we've talked about now, knowing what we've got, you know, seen as the 60s versus now, versus some of the trends and some of the yucky things that we're seeing happening because of those trends.
Yeah.
How do we shift it in the right direction and keep shifting it and knowing that this is not hopeless? There is hope.
I think we really need to speak out. I mean, that's one of the reasons why I'm so glad that at this point, my little Good Gut show and this, and I'm also, they asked me to speak for them. So on the 26th, I'm going to be doing master whatever, or something similar to this for InfoStack about gut health. Yes, we need to speak out and really understand that it's not that easy and sympathize with it, but also emphasize the fact that if we don't do this, as you said, the children of the future will not have a future.
No.
They will not have a future, and they've done enough, apocalyptic movies about that. So just pick one.
Yeah, exactly.
So it's like, no, and I really do. I think we're heading for a really huge fall, and this is definitely global because we're polluting our earth. It's a mess. Climate change. I mean, we're riding for a huge fall if we don't do something. It's just,
and the doing something though is you and I doing something. Is everyone doing something that will be the thing that changes it.
Right. And I think it starts with grassroots with this, because you're absolutely right. The whole idea of, well, one person will change. Yeah. Oh, one person wants to eat healthier. Oh, one person. And can that person share what they're doing? And it's just, and create a community. That's what I'm hoping to do with my Good Gut. Well, that's what I'm doing with my Good Gut group and working in that way, because I think there are enough people that are interested, because when people sign up for my group, I have some questions, and it's very interesting that they're very interested. They may be curious. They may have problems, but they know very little about functional medicine, and functional medicine is the paradigm that should be shifting because it's about this. Looking at dysfunction before it becomes disease. Now we look at disease and go, oh, I'll take a pill, or oh, I'll take a shot. This is not the consciousness that should be flowing into every nook and cranny of our universe right now. It should be looking at, okay, what can I do? Yeah. What can I do? And
so here's the thing. Okay, wait on. What can I do? If people want to know more about this and want to know how can they make a difference in this way, what's the best way they can connect with you?
Okay, well, I have a Good Gut group on Facebook. My website is healyourhealthnow.com. The InfoStack that you will, if you want to, it goes live on Tuesday. I would love it. And hold on for a second, because I want to introduce you to somebody who's been sitting here very patiently. And the InfoStack is healyourhealthnow.com/gut health. Okay. That goes live on Tuesday. I'm really excited about that, because there's like about 20 of us who are offering stuff. Again, 49. I mean, you could learn a lot about gut health there. It's not just me. It's a lot of very, very, Will Cole is like one of the top alternative medicine guys around, and he's in there. So amazing. Along with me, and I feel so honored that I was invited. I really do. It's so good.
But I love that fact. And I love the fact that, Jill, like, we've talked about so many big things today. And, like, in a lot of ways, it feels out of control. Yet what you're doing is going, hey, even at 75, I can help be the difference and create awareness by voicing what you think is really important, and by having a voice within the community of the gut community now, and
gut community.
But like, I really think that this is something that we often think that it's so big. We often think freedom is if I get to do what I want when I want. And I think, well, that's kind of really selfish if I get to do what I want, but no one else can do what they want. And I think, well, how can we as a collective get to do what we want and need to be doing and have that freedom? And I think I love hearing as you keep evolving what you're doing. You're using a lot of your skills, your resources, the tools that you've built up from the years of, working within different sides of the health industry, and put it together and go, hey, I want to make sure that you understand that when you can understand the gut, that this can help prevent a lot of the issues we're seeing across health. And we all know that when we are healthy physically, it has a massive impact on our mental capacity as well.
Oh, totally. Actually, there's a lot of studies about that.
Yeah.
A lot of studies. And if you realize too, that if you have a leaky gut, serotonin is made in the gut. Serotonin is one of our biggest neurotransmitters that helps us feel calm. If the gut is leaking, we're not making very much serotonin. Can I introduce you to somebody? Because I really would like to.
Of course you can.
Come on in. Come on in, America. I really want you to meet America.
Hello, and welcome to the decision table.
Hi, thank you. My name is America.
This is America Amaro, who has been my intrepid informal intern for like 2 years now.
Yeah. Wow.
She keeps hanging out with me. And the reason I want to introduce her to you is that she is the voice of tomorrow, number one.
Totally.
Making me cry, number one. Number two, she's hanging out with me, so she obviously is getting to know all this stuff. And number three, I'm so excited because she just got her internship. So she is going to be an RD. And
that is awesome.
RD ends, registered dietitian nutritionist, come this time next year or almost this time next year. She starts in July. She got it on the first try. She's really our person for tomorrow, because she is Hispanic and she's bilingual, and we need it here in California more than anywhere, I think. Oh, Texas, we were talking about Texas. So yeah, so you got
that is amazing. And I'd love to ask you, why do you think that this is all important for the next generation?
Just me being like Hispanic and a dietitian. I think definitely in dietetics, there's a lack of diversity. And in Southern California, there's a lot of Hispanic people, especially where we live. So I think, sometimes people don't seek help because they don't speak the language as their practitioner. So they'll just avoid it and things like that. So I think it's very important to have somebody that you can relate to and to have somebody whose culture culture competent practitioners. And unfortunately, sometimes that doesn't happen.
Yeah, I love that. And I love the fact that you're stepping into that, and, you will help to bring, great change to the next generation as well, of having someone that they can relate to, and someone that, gives a different voice at the table, which is something that I think is important in everything we're doing. In whether it's in our diets, whether it's in our thinking, whether it's whatever decisions, the more we can have different lenses in which we use at that table, I think that helps create a better future, because we can actually disrupt some of the things that we're not liking or not enjoying, or it's not creating the freedom that all of us need to be able to enjoy, whether we were born in the 60s or not.
Yeah. So what do you think about the the future of, well, not even just dietetics, but the future of what we've been talking about, you know, in other words, how to change the consciousness?
I think, like Carrie Marie was saying, by having conversations, having difficult conversations, I think sometimes it can be uncomfortable, but I think it's important to have these conversations. We can't just continue to ignore the problems that surround us, because you're very right. They affect every single person, whether you see it or not. So I think my generation is doing a good job at kind of stepping it up. And I think social media and the internet and doing things like this has really helped evolve and change kind of just the conversation. Has helped it reach a bigger audience. And I think people are paying attention and they're having discussions. And I think that's very important.
I totally agree. And I want to ask you this. If that's the case, that we're starting to have more of a conversation like this, we are getting that conversation out. What are we now to do with that conversation?
I think a lot of, like we just saw in our last election, a lot of that conversation brought a lot of voters. I mean, it was like record-breaking, things like that. I think people will kind of think that their voice doesn't matter, but it's important to reinforce that. It's important to go out and vote. It's important to do things in our community, like, you know, think global, act local, because changes really do make a difference. So I think you know, take the action that you can.
I love that. And I think that that's so important. I kind of have this cycle that I go through, like a pathway, which is we've got to individually go, what are we owning on that? Then how does that affect our community, whether that's your sphere of influence, whatever that looks like. And then as the global space, right, the landscape. And then it's like, okay, great. So that makes that gap between, in a lot of ways, between us, me, you, Jill at this table, that we go, okay, the global seems so far away, but it's not that far away. It's actually just you, me, Jill, right? Like that's as close as it can be. And I think when we can narrow the gap from these things that seem so far away, and own it and go, what am I doing with that? How am I going to bring the change that is needed? And it's doing, like, in the spaces that we're all in, it's having a voice, it's changing the conversation, and then it's going, how are we going to own that? So here's a question for both of you. And this is the time of the show that I always say, it's the one thing that I say the same on every, like, I have no idea where we're going with this conversation on the table. And that's on purpose, because I don't want my biases and my conditionings to think, oh, that's where we need to go and that's what we need to talk about. So it's on purpose. And I think we've talked a lot around things that have brought new awareness to the table. And so my question now is our ownership piece, and that is, what are you taking from this conversation today? So Jill, do you want to start or finish?
Okay, yeah, I will. Well, you know what came to mind for me? What came to mind for me was the whole idea of, remember, you know, you and I have known each other a long time, and I did that Love Yourself lunch. And I do believe that really where it comes down to, again, is changing your health one meal at a time, really looking at and beginning with just something and seeing where you're at, because I do believe that's how human beings do it. I do believe that you start somewhere and then you go, oh, maybe this feels good. Maybe I like this. Maybe I, you know, or gee, not too comfortable, but I'm going to keep going because I feel value in this. I think it's just one thing at a time. I think that we have to get down. I have to get down to grassroots of all of that as a spokesperson, and really say, hey, you know what? Just try it. See where you're at with it. That's my whole thing. That was what came to mind as we were talking, is like, make it approachable, because I think as clinicians, and you have to watch this, girl, as clinicians, we tend to get very erudite and talking stuff that most people can't relate to. It's good to have that knowledge, because you can really kind of throw it at clients and go, by the way, you know, statistically, or with things I threw at you, you know, I just in my head. But it's more important to get down and really talk at a grassroots level and just go, yeah, just try it.
Yeah. Just try it.
That's where I'm at with it, you know.
I love it.
So I think my takeaway from the conversation I've been listening to with you guys is, I think it's about having the confidence to show up with your voice, and having a confidence to have the conversation and show your face, and like doing things like this. I think that's amazing. And talking about uncomfortable things, especially as I move forward in my career. I see a lot of dietitians who don't talk about the things that Jill spoke about today. But I think it's important to use your voice and use your platform.
Yeah, I love that. And it's one of the things that I think is the massive thing, that all of us have a chance to use our platform. It may be a small platform, it may be a medium one, it may be a huge one. It doesn't matter. But it does matter how we use our platform and give voice and advocate for humanity. And that's the important piece around it, right? So what I'm taking from our conversation today, and I think that it's that combination of the uncomfortable, where, you know, we talked about things in the political space and things that often we don't even push into when it's not our area of expertise, right? Like, it's not something we spend hours and hours in, because maybe we're busy being the dietitian or whatever it is, right? But I think that when we talk about humanity as stakeholders, one of the things around that is seeing that whether we are political or not, we are affected by what the political space is doing and saying, and making decisions up there. And I think that this continuous talk around, you know, you've mentioned so many times around the uncomfortable is so important for us to have, yet it's so uncomfortable, right? Because we don't necessarily know everything. We don't necessarily, but we know from what we're seeing and how that's having an effect on who we are involved with. And I think the more that we can give voice to that, the more that this gives the ability for us to go, okay, so I'm not the only one that's thinking this. Okay, so I'm not the only one that's frustrated with this. I'm not the only one that's having to deal with this. And I think that that's important. And that's reminded me from our conversation today is, although, you know, we've spoken about health, if we're not in an environment that is being healthy, it is going to have a massive effect on us. We're not, you know, we talk about physical health, and we've gone on and around gut and things like that, but we know that has a mental, you know, response to how our gut is. And we know that if we're putting data into us that is not healthy data, what's going to overflow from that is pretty grotty, right? Yeah. So I think that this has been an amazing conversation, and I want to thank both of you. And I thank Jill. Oh my gosh, so good. I love it. And I love what you said too on this, and added value to the table. So
I love that.
Thank you to both of you. And Jill, always a pleasure, always amazing having conversations with you, and, you know, just this openness of learning from both sides. You know, you've got wisdom from years that maybe I wasn't born in the 60s. Although I have to say, and this is a funny little thing, but when I asked my daughters, I said, so what is the olden days to you? Because when I was younger, the olden days was like the 50s, 60s, you know, things like that, right? And when I asked my children, they said anything beyond yesterday.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. That's funny.
Oh, wow.
Anything beyond yesterday. Isn't that interesting?
Yeah, I mean, and you can use that wonderful wealth of knowledge. I mean, I do every day. I just feel so blessed about all of the stuff I've experienced. I just, so amazing.
Well, thank you so much for being willing to share it today. And I also want to ask you guys, is there anything else that you felt you needed to give voice to and you haven't had a moment to be able to do that?
No, you good?
Okay. Yeah.
You sure? She's great. That's all I have to give voice to. I really love the fact. Look, she taught me Pinterest, and now I have 2,500 followers. The people of the future who will be the leaders of the future, and I feel like she will. Not too much putting you on you already, and you're not even
no pressure.
No pressure.
I think all of us have the opportunity to be the leaders of the future.
But I do
because if the olden days are yesterday, then the future is today on onwards.
I like that. Yeah. Oh, that's beautiful. I love that. Okay. Great.
Yeah.
No, that's all I have to say. I'm good.
I love it. All right, I'm going to end this broadcast, but don't you two run away for a second. All right.
Okay.